I saw the blood scattered, the ruthlessness he executed, without a trace of remorse. He was not a savior. He was the apex predator, the ruler of the night that the entire city feared. My survival instinct and every ounce of logic in me screamed to run, to reclaim the freedom I'd lost. But in that instant, when he crushed me in his strong arms, stained with blood and victory, I found a terrifying safety. A feeling of absolute, fierce protection that paralyzed my reason, a strange peace born directly from violence and possession. I despised the source of this security, yet I couldn't break away. He looked straight at me, his cold yet blazing eyes piercing my soul, declaring, "You are my weakness, Chloe." And I responded with the complete surrender of my heart. "I am yours." All boundaries were shattered. In this dark world, where the law bends beneath his heel, I realized the only thing that transcends everything. Love is life, the ultimate law that binds me forever. That night, New York City felt like a colossal, living entity, panting in the heavy rain, swallowing every light, leaving only neon streaks reflecting off foul puddles, mirroring lost souls. The rain drummed relentlessly on the eaves, mixing with the frantic beat of my heart, Chloe Albright. Each beat threatened to tear through my thin chest, as if desperately trying to escape the body trembling with terror. My breath came in sharp, dry gasps, tasting metallic and salty. How many times had I bitten my lip? I ran, scrambling through alleys dark as pitch, past desolate parking lots, and along deserted side streets, trying to leave behind the nightmare that had descended mere minutes ago. That man's face. Silas. His eyes were soulless, gray-blue like a dead fish, his smile a distorted grimace on his scarred face, snarling threats. The image of him brandishing a shining knife, the cold steel blade reflecting the dim streetlight like the scythe of death, haunted my mind, pursuing me relentlessly. I could feel the hot, foul breath from his mouth, the pungent smell of cheap alcohol and sour sweat. The sheer terror stripped me of any sense of time or place. I didn't know how long or how far I had run. I just knew I had to run until my legs gave out, run until I could catch a breath of peace, even if only for a fleeting moment, a temporary escape from the lurking death. My thin, cheap leather jacket, grabbed in haste during my escape, was now soaked through, plastered to my body, chilling me to the bone. The heavy raindrops were like small, sharp stones, lashing my face, stinging my eyes already swollen from fear and hopeless tears. I didn't know where I was, only that I had to keep moving. Relentlessly. The heavy, hurried footsteps behind me. There were more than one, maybe 2 or 3. They were gaining. I could hear them calling my name, their voices rough and menacing, piercing the thick curtain of rain like poisoned arrows through the night. "Chloe! Chloe Albright! You can't escape!" Silas's voice echoed, wild and bloodthirsty, mixed with terrifying, scornful laughter, like a mournful anthem announcing the end. An extreme terror surged, constricting my throat. I tripped over a gnarled root from an old, decaying tree, falling face first into a cold puddle, the sharp pain radiating from my knee to my hip. A small groan escaped, instantly swallowed. There was no time for injuries. The fear was 1,000,000 times greater than any scrape or bruise. I scrambled up, my hands bloody and muddy. Looking up through the rain's haze, I saw a large, empty road, lit by only a few dim streetlights, casting a faint, hopeless halo. I dashed out, without thought or calculation. I had to get away from those hunting me like mere prey. And then I saw it. A luxurious, pitch-black car, gleaming like a monster hidden in the shadows. It was unlike any car I'd ever seen in my ordinary life. Long, low, with sharp, cold lines, it possessed a mysterious, lethal beauty. Its headlights flashed, blinding me, forcing me to squint. It was my only chance. A choice not made by me, but dictated by my survival instinct, a fragile thread of hope in the desperate darkness. Without hesitation, Without a second's pause, I yanked the rear door handle. It opened, unlocked. As if it was meant to be open, as if it was waiting for me. Waiting for the prey to walk into the trap. I collapsed onto the back seat, my body shaking like a dry branch in a great storm. My breathing was ragged, broken, the coppery taste of blood rising in my throat, perhaps from biting my lip until it tore. I tried to curl up, pressed against the corner of the seat, my heart still pounding frantically, deafeningly. The scent of high-end, new, luxurious leather, a faint hint of peppermint, and something sharp, strong, a masculine fragrance from the front space, filled the cabin, enveloping me. It was simultaneously luxurious and suffocating, promising safety, yet signaling a new danger. "Drive," I gasped, my voice lost from fear and exhaustion, almost inaudible. "Please. Drive away from here." The car remained motionless, silent except for the rain. I looked up, my eyes meeting the reflection in the rearview mirror. A pair of eyes sharp as a razor, cold as ice. The man. He sat in the driver's seat, completely still, like a statue carved from polished black marble, unmoving. His face was obscured in the shadows, only revealing cold, angular features, a high, straight nose, and thin lips. His gaze. It showed no surprise or confusion. It held only a terrifying stillness, as if he had known I would be here, at this very moment, as if I were already part of his plan. I recoiled, a cold, uneasy premonition slithering up my spine like a snake. This wasn't an ordinary taxi driver. No, this was something else. Something more dangerous, more mysterious than the men pursuing me, something even more terrifying than Silas and his crew. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead, mixing with the rain, running down my temples. I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe heavily. He never turned his head, yet I felt his eyes scanning my reflection in the rearview mirror, like a predator observing its prey, assessing my smallest movements. I was the prey, and he was the predator. My predator. Behind me, the footsteps were closer. The shouts of my name were clearer now, deafening. "Chloe! You won't escape!" Silas's voice screamed, filled with frenzy and bloodlust, echoing like a clap of thunder. "You belong to me!" In a moment of ultimate panic, I looked at him through the rearview mirror. The man's sharp eyes were still fixed on me, but this time I saw a strange spark. A glimmer of calculation, of an intention forming deep within. He showed no fear of the approaching men. He was simply observing me, as if weighing an option, a high-stakes game where I had accidentally become the most important piece. Then, abruptly, his hand reached for the gear shift. The car gave a small screech, then bolted forward like an arrow slicing through the wind, cutting through the dense darkness. My pursuers were left as small, faint black dots behind us, their screams quickly swallowed by the rain and the dizzying speed of the car. I slumped back into the seat, closing my eyes, a relieved sigh escaping my chest, mixed with the salty taste of tears. Safe. At least for now. I had escaped death once more. But then, an icy question crawled into my mind, piercing to the bone. Safe with whom? And safe where? This man. He had saved me, but at what cost? I couldn't clearly see his face in the darkness, but the sense of immense power, the lethal danger emanating from him, was undeniable. The car glided smoothly, yet I felt imprisoned in a cage of steel and leather, a luxurious cage, but a cage nonetheless. I was in a car driven by a mysterious man, whom I didn't know, whose purpose I didn't know, and who was taking me to an unknown destination. Stop. Please. I gasped again, my voice still shaky, weak. Please. Let me out. He still didn't answer. The car continued to speed, faster, farther, taking me away from familiar roads, away from the streets I knew, away from the bustling city itself. The city lights gradually receded, replaced by empty roads, tall rows of trees, and houses hidden in the darkness, like ghosts. Where were we going? What was he planning to do with me? Thousands of questions swirled in my mind, but I couldn't utter them. Fear once again suffocated me, but this time, it was different. It was a cold dread, a fear of uncertainty, of surrendering to a force I couldn't possibly control, a force far greater than myself. I leaned my head against the cold window, staring out at the pitch-black night, trying to find any familiar sign, but in vain. Only the sound of the rain and the smooth car engine were the sole sounds, creating a mournful, somber melody. I tried to calm myself, taking deep breaths, but it was useless. The image of Xander Sterling, the man, kept popping up in my mind. His eyes, the way he wasn't flustered when I dove into his car, the way he made a quick, decisive decision. Everything about him exuded mystery, unpredictable danger, something primal and terrifying. I am Chloe Albright. I am a data programmer. I am not a weak, easily bullied girl. I have always been proud of my independence and self-reliance. But in that moment, I was just a fawn caught in the trap of a supreme predator. I had escaped one devil, only to fall into the hands of another. A devil with absolute power, an utterly cold demeanor, and a pair of eyes I couldn't read anything in but frost, but an intention I entirely failed to understand. Why did you help me? I finally found my voice, though it was still shaky, weak. Who are you? The man didn't turn back. He maintained his driving posture, his hands on the steering wheel with terrifying composure, as if he was controlling not just the car but my destiny. Only his broad shoulders, covered in luxurious charcoal gray suit fabric, further enhanced his authoritative, impenetrable mystique. I am Xander Sterling, he said, his voice deep, resonating in the confined space, yet chilling to the bone. And you, Chloe Albright, you have willingly stepped into a world you know nothing about, a world you can never understand. Statement was a warning, but also an undeniable declaration of ownership. I had stepped into his world. And I wondered, was that a promise of protection or a death sentence for my freedom? The black car glided smoothly through the quiet night, finally stopping before an old, stately mansion, towering among ancient oak trees like an impenetrable fortress. It stood isolated on a gentle hill, far from all city lights, surrounded by vast gardens swallowed by the night, leaving only the faint silhouettes of tall trees like dry skeletons, stretching their bare limbs to the starry sky. The large iron gate, intricately carved with ancient patterns, slowly opened without a sound, like the doorway to another world. A world I had never imagined, a world completely opposite to my normal life. I stepped out of the car, my legs still shaky, numb after the terrifying journey. Rainwater still clung to my hair and clothes, clammy and cold, but my body had stopped trembling from the chill. Now, what made me shake was uneasiness, an extreme anxiety facing what lay ahead, a completely vague future, in the hands of this mysterious man. Xander Sterling had stepped out of the car some time before, without a sound, like a ghost. He was tall, imposing beside the car, his eyes sweeping over me as if appraising a precious object, a prized possession he had just acquired. He said nothing, only gesturing for me to enter with a slight, authoritative nod. The house inside was even grander than I imagined. High ceilings, decorated with intricate carvings, walls paneled in dark, glossy walnut, and a grand white marble staircase winding up to the upper floor, like a work of art. The air inside was warm, faintly scented with sandalwood, high-end scented candles, and a hint of jasmine. A strange contrast to the cold, menacing appearance outside. An older woman, with hair white as snow and a kind, benevolent face, appeared from a dim hallway, her eyes showing worry yet containing an unusual calmness. She handed me a soft, warm towel and a hot, steaming cup of herbal tea. "Poor child," she said, her voice gentle and warm, but her eyes briefly glanced toward Xander Sterling with an indescribable awe, a near absolute respect. "Go take a bath and rest. You will be safe here, for now." Safe? I wondered. Safety defined by whom? I once thought my home was safe, my final sanctuary, until Silas's pursuers attacked. Now, I was in a luxurious house, next to a powerful and frightening man, whom I knew nothing about, except his name, Xander Sterling, and those cold eyes. Xander Sterling remained silent, only observing me with a terrifying composure, a stillness utterly devoid of emotion. I realized his gaze revealed no feeling, only calculation, an indescribable coldness, like an eternal block of ice. But deep inside, I sensed something else. A tacit protection, an invisible shield he was erecting around me, a strange sense of security. That protection was both terrifying and strangely captivating. I detested myself for feeling a touch of safety near him, a man I believed was no less dangerous than the thugs pursuing me, perhaps even more so. The following days passed like a strange, waking dream. I was confined to the mansion, though not chained or locked, but I knew I couldn't leave. Everything I needed was provided, from clean clothes, sumptuous meals, to precious books to read in the library. But I couldn't leave the house, couldn't contact the outside world. All my attempts were subtly blocked, wordlessly, but incredibly effectively. The housekeeper, Mrs. Higgins, was always polite but firm, never letting me cross some invisible boundary. Xander Sterling appeared irregularly, like a ghost in his own house. He didn't talk much, only sat opposite me in the vast library, reading or working on his laptop. But I always felt his eyes tracking my every move, every breath, every beat of my heart, like a guard, a protector. One rainy afternoon, I was sitting in the library, trying to read a classic novel, but my mind was completely distracted. Xander Sterling walked in, the sound of his leather shoes echoing on the polished wooden floor, creating an authoritative sound. He placed a laptop on the antique ebony desk, then pushed it towards me, without a word. "You are Chloe Albright," he said, his voice deep but commanding, like a verdict. "A known data programmer, specializing in complex network analysis and decoding advanced encryption algorithms." I flinched. He knew about me. He had investigated me thoroughly. "How do you know?" I asked, my voice lost in surprise and fear. Xander Sterling smirked, a cold smile, without warmth, with no hint of amusement. "Nothing is a secret in my world, Chloe, especially when I need something. Or someone." His eyes were sharp as a razor, piercing through me, as if reading my soul. "You accidentally decoded a part of the network I've been looking for. A trafficking network of human cargo. Correct?" My throat was dry. He knew. He knew everything, down to the smallest detail. It was exactly that information that led to my pursuit, my harmless curiosity that threw me into this deadly vortex. I had accidentally stumbled upon a hornet's nest when I was trying to find data for a personal research project on cybercrime. I had discovered a series of illegal transactions, complex encryptions that led to a transnational human trafficking ring, a massive and brutal operation. Terrified, I tried to contact the police, but before I could do anything, they found me. Silas and his crew. "Yes," I admitted, my voice a whisper, almost inaudible. "But I didn't mean to. I just stumbled upon it. I don't want to be involved." "Accidental, but incredibly useful," Xander Sterling said, his voice carrying a terrifying satisfaction, a cold smugness. "Useful to me." "And dangerous to you." He pointed at the laptop screen, gesturing. "I want you to continue. Finish your work. Decrypt the entire network." "I can't!" I exclaimed, almost shouting. "They will kill me. You saw that night. Silas won't let me go." Xander Sterling stood up, advancing towards me. His shadow loomed large, enveloping me, like a devil from the darkness, a fallen angel. He placed his hand on the armrest of the chair, leaning down, his sharp eyes looking directly into mine, unblinking. His peppermint breath fanned my face, powerful yet dangerous, both captivating and terrifying. "Chloe," he said, his voice dropping low, like a lethal whisper, full of authority. "Here, you are safe. I will protect you. No one can touch what belongs to me." That possessive language sent a shiver down my spine. Belongs to me. I was not an object, not a piece of property for him to claim. I was Chloe Albright, a person with free will. But in that moment, under his gaze, I felt no more than an object, a tool he would use for his own purpose. Yet, a part of me felt a strange sense of relief, an inexplicable safety. He would protect me. He, a terrifyingly powerful man, had declared me his. And in his world, that declaration carried immense weight, an unbreakable guarantee. I started working. In the vast library, under the cold supervision of Xander Sterling. He didn't know programming, but he understood the structure of the underworld, how criminals operated, the legal loopholes they exploited. He provided me with information, clues I couldn't find anywhere else, details that only someone at the pinnacle of the underworld, someone who lived in the darkness, could possibly know. Xander Sterling was not a kind man. He was a devil. But he was the devil fighting other devils, those who harmed innocent women and children, those whose souls had been trampled. During the process, I gradually understood the conflict within Xander Sterling. He was obsessed with protecting the vulnerable, especially women and children, those who were ruthlessly exploited and abused. That obsession was not simple kindness, not ordinary compassion. It stemmed from a deep scar in his past, a pain he never spoke of, but I could sense through his every action, every glance, every subtle expression. Perhaps he had witnessed, or even experienced, something horrific related to these issues, an event that shaped who he was. Late one night, I was hunched over the computer screen, trying to break an extremely complex layer of encryption. Xander Sterling sat opposite, his eyes fixed on me, but I knew he wasn't looking at the screen. He was looking at me, as if reading my mind. Exhausted, I slumped my head onto the desk, sighing, a sense of despair surging. "It's too hard," I whispered. "It's like an impenetrable fortress wall, a maze with no exit." Xander Sterling stood up, the chair creaking, breaking the silence. He approached, slowly, authoritatively. He said nothing, only placed a hot, fragrant cup of coffee on the antique mahogany desk in front of me, its warmth spreading in the cold air. I looked up at him, a flicker of surprise in my eyes. He cared about me? Or did he just want me to finish the work faster? Whatever the reason, that small gesture brought a little warmth, an unexpected tenderness from a man as chillingly dangerous as him, a rare softness in this dark world. "Take a break," he said, his voice deeper than usual, less sharp. "Your body and mind need rest. You can't work effectively when you're exhausted. Chloe, rest." He didn't touch me, but I felt an invisible proximity, a slight electric current running through the air between us, an undeniable connection. I drank a sip of the hot coffee, its slightly bitter and warm taste spreading in my throat, chasing away some of the fatigue, some of the fear. I looked at him, trying to read something in those cold eyes, but it was useless. He was a solid wall, a complete enigma. My days in Xander Sterling's mansion were a relentless internal conflict. I feared him, feared his power, his coldness, the dark world he lived in, a world of outlaws, violence, and death. But at the same time, I was intensely drawn to him. Drawn by the safety he provided, by the deep eyes hiding secrets, by the mystery exuding from his every move, his every word. I detested myself for this feeling. How could I be drawn to a man like him? A potential killer, an outlaw, a man whose hands must surely be stained with blood. Every time he came near, an intense, haunting tension enveloped me. My heart beat faster, my breath became shallow, my body trembled uncontrollably. It wasn't just fear, but a strange excitement, an urge to uncover the secrets hidden behind those cold eyes, behind that solid shell. I wondered, was there a part of him left with warmth, a spark of light amidst the endless darkness? Or was I just deluding myself with fragile hopes, with illusions? One fateful evening, I had decoded a large portion of the network. A crucial piece of information was revealed, a discovery that sent shivers down my spine. The name of the ringleader, a notorious crime boss named Kalen Varr, and the location of a warehouse filled with the latest cargo. Innocent women and children awaiting their tragic fate. Xander Sterling's face grew strained. He stood up, pacing the library, his eyes sharp as razors, filled with anger and utter determination. "Well done, Chloe," he said, his voice deeper, carrying a chilling resolve, an unshakable declaration. "Now, it's time." Time for what? I didn't dare ask. A part of me already knew. I knew it was time for a battle Xander Sterling would lead, and I was merely a tool that had completed its mission. Or did I have another value? His eyes rested on me, a deep, knowing look, as if considering something important. "Little one," he said, his voice low, "tonight I will show you what my world is truly like. You will see what I have to face." And I wondered, was that a warning of danger, or an invitation into the abyss of his world, an irresistible invitation? Night fell, heavy and somber, the air in the mansion becoming suffocatingly tense, as if the entire house was holding its breath, awaiting something terrible to happen. Xander Sterling had left at sunset, without a word of farewell, leaving me alone in the vast library, with chaotic thoughts and a growing fear tearing at my heart. I knew he was out confronting the men who had pursued me, those belonging to the repulsive trafficking network I had helped him expose. Part of me wanted him to succeed, wanted those men to pay the proper price for their crimes, wanted the innocent victims rescued. But another part trembled with fear for his safety, and my own. Was I truly safe here? Would he return? Or would I be left alone, in a world I didn't belong to, awaiting my fate? Around midnight, a loud noise made me jump, shattering the quiet night. It was the sound of glass breaking from the lower floor, the sound of hurried footsteps pounding on the marble floor, and then gunshots. The gunshots rang out dryly, continuously, tearing through the quiet night, like a cold warning that Xander Sterling's dark world had extended its tentacles here, to the place I had mistakenly thought was absolutely safe, where I had found a fragile peace. My heart seemed to stop, then beat wildly and painfully. They had found me. They had stormed the mansion. I rushed out of the library, dashing down the stairs, my legs barely steady. From the upper floor, I saw a scene of chaos, a horrifying sight unfolding right before my eyes. Thugs, with savage faces and tattoos, were storming the house, destroying everything mercilessly. Mrs. Higgins was trying to resist, but she was pushed down, screaming in pain. A large man, with greedy, lustful eyes, was looking up at me. It was Silas. The one who had pursued me that night, the one who had sown terror in my life. "Chloe, you thought you could hide, you bitch," he roared, his voice rough, filled with rage and frenzy, his eyes bulging. "You are mine. No one can save you now." He started running up the stairs, each heavy step like a death drum, echoing in the empty space. I backed away, further and further, until my back hit the cold wall, with no way out. A feeling of ultimate despair enveloped me. Finally, I would have to face them. And this time, no one would come to save me, no mysterious black car. My fate was sealed. But then, a dark shadow flashed, quick as lightning. A thunderous punch took Silas down mid-staircase, sending him tumbling onto the marble floor, unconscious. Xander Sterling. He had returned. He appeared like a god of vengeance, his eyes blazing in the darkness, cold and lethal, carrying the breath of death. He didn't speak a word, only acted. Every punch, every kick carried terrifying power, taking down each man quickly and decisively, without a moment of hesitation. He was like a fierce storm, sweeping away every obstacle, leaving nothing behind. I stood there, stunned, unable to believe my eyes. Xander Sterling, the mysterious man I had been drawn to, had transformed into a ruthless fighting machine, a cold-blooded killer. He showed no mercy, no hesitation. He was like a master hunter, finishing off each prey coldly, emotionlessly, without a hint of regret. Blood splattered on the pristine white marble floor, hysterical screams, the crunch of breaking bones, the thud of bodies hitting the ground. All created a horrifying spectacle, a symphony of violence, a mournful anthem for those who dared invade his territory. Then, one of them, a massive man with a shining knife, suddenly lunged towards me, his eyes wild. He had momentarily escaped Xander Sterling's control, taking advantage of a tiny lapse. I squeezed my eyes shut, awaiting the cold blade to pierce my flesh, awaiting my end. I had accepted my fate. "She's mine!" A furious roar echoed, full of authority and possession, an undeniable declaration. Xander Sterling, with terrifying speed, intercepted the man. He didn't hesitate, using his bare hand to grab the thug's wrist, squeezing hard. I heard the crunch of bones breaking, a chilling sound to the marrow. The knife fell to the floor, making a cold, small clang that echoed in the quiet space. The thug collapsed, his eyes wide with pain and fear, completely lifeless. Xander Sterling's eyes turned back to me, still blazing, but now with an added fury, an ultimate rage that someone dared touch his property, dared invade what belonged to him. He approached me, each step firm, full of power. He knelt down, using his strong hands to hold my face, gently yet firmly, as if holding something precious. His fingers were cold, but carried a strange warmth as they touched my skin, an inexplicable contrast. "Chloe," he whispered, his voice deep, haunting, mixed with the lingering rage. "No one is allowed to touch you. No one. You are mine. Forever mine. I will never let anyone hurt you again." The words were simultaneously a declaration of love and a statement of ownership, a sweet curse, an unbreakable bond. I felt an electric current run down my spine, not from fear, but from a powerful tremor, an irresistible attraction, a complete surrender. In that moment, amidst the chaos and destruction, Xander Sterling kissed me. His kiss was strong, decisive, carrying the metallic taste of blood and the rage of a wild beast. It was both a taking and a protection, a silent vow that he would do anything to keep me by his side, to shield me from this cruel world, from all danger. His lips were cold, but the kiss was burning, scorching all my senses, making me forget everything else. I didn't resist. I couldn't resist. I returned his kiss, instinctively, wildly, as if I had been waiting for this kiss for a very long time, waiting for this release. I had detested myself for being drawn to him. But in that second, all repulsion vanished, leaving only desire, a complete surrender to this man's power, to his fierce love. When he pulled away, I gasped, my eyes filled with tears. His eyes still gazed deeply into mine, but the anger had subsided, replaced by a dark fire, an intense passion burning fiercely, a possessive love. He stroked my cheek, his fingers rough yet incredibly gentle, as if touching a fragile glass object. "I won't let any scumbag harm you, Chloe," he said, his voice softer, but the decisiveness remained unchanged, still full of authority. "Those who dare touch what is mine, they will pay with blood. They will die." And I wondered, was that a promise of eternal protection, or a death sentence for all who opposed him, a promise stained with blood and violence? After that explosive night, the atmosphere in the mansion changed completely, no longer the suffocation of fear, but an electrically charged tension, interwoven with a blurry layer of intimacy and internal conflict. The thugs had been thoroughly dealt with by Xander Sterling, leaving no trace but a few cracks in the walls and a faint smell of gunpowder lingering in the cold air. He cleaned up everything quickly, shockingly efficiently, emotionlessly, like a ghost. He was a problem solver through violence, a man who acted in the dark, yet incredibly effective, without a single mistake. I saw his injuries. A deep tear in his shoulder, blood soaking through his black suit jacket, gruesome and expansive. A large wound on his side, perhaps a stab wound, making his every movement difficult. He never groaned, never complained, not a sound escaped his lips. He simply walked silently into his study, then emerged in different clothes, his wounds hastily bandaged, but I knew they were deep, they were painful. His silence only increased my worry, my anguish. He seemed invincible, an unbeatable machine, but that didn't mean he couldn't be hurt, didn't mean he didn't have to pay a price. In the following days, I noticed a distinct change in how Xander Sterling treated me. He was no longer the cold, mysterious, unapproachable man he was before. He still maintained his authoritative and intimidating exterior, still a solid steel wall, but his eyes? Those eyes carried an unusual tenderness whenever he looked at me, a look full of protection, full of emotion I had never seen in him. He started spending more time with me, not just to supervise work or give orders. He told me stories from his past, fragmented pieces about an unhappy childhood, about the pain he had endured, about irreparable losses. He was born into one of New York's most powerful and wealthy families, but one steeped in violence and darkness. His mother was a victim of brutal abuse, both physical and emotional, and he witnessed it all, witnessed the pain of the person he loved most. That was why he hated those who hurt women and children. He considered them no better than bloodthirsty animals, things that needed to be eliminated. He had sworn never to let anyone suffer what his mother had suffered, or what he had witnessed. And to do that, he had to become a devil. A devil with absolute power, above the law, personally executing justice in his own way, with his own blood-stained hands. I listened to him, my heart heavy. I detested his world, detested what he had done, detested those brutal acts, but I couldn't detest him. Instead, a deep empathy rose in my heart. I saw the scar in his soul, saw the hidden pain behind that cold exterior, an unhealable pain, and I realized he was not emotionless. He was merely hiding his feelings behind a thick steel wall to protect himself, to survive in that brutal world. "Chloe," he said one afternoon, as I was helping him rebandage his shoulder wound. My fingers lightly brushed his warm skin, feeling every tight muscle fiber, every strong beat of his heart. I never thought I would find someone who could understand me, who could see the real me behind this mask. I looked up at him, his eyes deep as a dark ocean, hiding 1,000 secrets. I saw in them not only suffering, but also a longing, a solitude he had carried for so many years, a loneliness I could feel profoundly. "Xander," I whispered, my voice choked. "You are not alone anymore. I am here." He took my hand, his hand strong yet squeezing gently, as if afraid to break me. "You are the light in my darkness, Chloe," he said, his voice deep, haunting, overflowing with emotion I had never seen in him. "You are the reason I continue to fight, to believe in a better tomorrow. You are my everything." But that peace didn't last long. The threat from the human trafficking network had not ended. They were only momentarily deterred, beaten back, but not completely destroyed. They were stronger than I thought. Perhaps they had regrouped, and they seemed to have found another weakness of Xander Sterling. A small orphanage on the outskirts of the city, where Xander Sterling had secretly provided financial support and protection for years, where he had entrusted the smallest, most benevolent part of his heart. It was where he saw the innocent children he wanted to shield from the world's cruelty, the fragile souls he wanted to shelter. One fateful morning, news of an attack on the orphanage reached Xander Sterling's ears. His face changed instantly, his eyes blazing with ultimate fury and worry, a fire I had never seen. He stood up, colder and more lethal than ever, all his wounds seemingly vanishing beneath the steel armor of his resolve. They have crossed my final line, he said, his voice deep and raspy, like a curse. They will pay at all costs. Not a single one will escape. I was terrified. I knew Xander Sterling would stop at nothing to protect those children, to protect what he cherished. And I also knew it could put him in ultimate danger, danger to his life. Xander, I took his hand, my hands trembling. Please be careful. Please. He turned to look at me, his eyes more determined than ever, full of resolve. Don't worry, Chloe, he said, his voice deep yet powerfully reassuring. I will return, and I will return for you, for us. He kissed my forehead, a gentle yet promising kiss, full of love. He left, leaving me in the vast mansion, with worry tearing at my heart. I waited for every second, every minute. Time passed like an eternity, like sand slipping through my fingers. I could do nothing but pray. Pray for Xander, pray for the innocent children, pray for a good outcome. I paced the room, my mind reeling with the worst-case scenarios, the horrifying images. Would he return? Would I ever see those sharp eyes, hear that deep voice again? Would our love end in tragedy? Late into the night, stars twinkled in the pitch-black sky, like the tears of the universe. I sat curled up on the sofa, my eyes fixed on the window, wishing for a miracle, a sign of life. The rain pattered outside, like the sky's lament, like a mournful melody. And then, a familiar engine sound echoed, breaking the night silence. Xander. He had returned. I rushed to the door, seeing his black car pull up. He stepped out, his clothes stained with mud and blood, but his eyes were still firm, still full of power, still full of life. He hadn't fallen. He had won. He had protected the children. He advanced towards me, slowly, but every step contained extraordinary strength, an unyielding resilience. I ran to hug him, burying my face in his chest, feeling his warm breath and the coppery smell of blood clinging to him, the scent of victory and sacrifice. I cried. Cried from the fear that had passed, cried from ultimate relief, cried from a fierce love surging in my heart, a love for my predator, a love that had transcended all boundaries. Xander, I whispered, my voice choked. I was scared. I was so afraid of losing you. He held me tight, his hand stroking my hair gently, as if comforting a child. I'm here, Chloe, he said, his voice deeper than ever, full of reassurance and love. There's nothing to fear anymore. I will protect you, at all costs, with my own life. You are mine. His act of violence was romanticized. It wasn't senseless cruelty. It was absolute protection, an act of love. His love, stronger than all fear, had conquered all, had overcome all limits, all barriers. It was the love of a predator for his prey, a dark, fierce, and irresistible love. The battle was over. Xander Sterling had won, but that victory came at the cost of blood and tears, at the cost of his own life force. He had completely dismantled the human trafficking network, rescued all the innocent victims, the trampled souls, and ensured that none of those who had harmed them could escape justice. All would pay the proper price. But he was also severely wounded. Not just the physical injuries, piled high and deeply etched on his exhausted body, but also the wounds in his soul, the haunting memories of a past full of violence and irreparable loss. The following days passed in a heavy silence, enveloping the mansion like a shroud of mourning. Xander Sterling lay on the bed, his body exhausted, his breathing weak, but his eyes still followed me, still full of concern and love. I cared for him, little by little, changing his bandages, feeding him warm soup, and simply being by his side, holding his hand tightly, passing on my warmth. I didn't know where our future would go, but I knew I couldn't leave him. He was a part of me, a dark and dangerous part, but also the part that protected me, that gave me a safe haven in this dangerous world, an intense and absolute love. One fateful afternoon, As the sun was slowly setting on the horizon, staining the sky with brilliant orange and purple hues, like a tragic painting, Xander Sterling took my hand. His hand was weaker than usual, colder, but still carried a familiar warmth, an unbreakable connection. He looked at me, his eyes softer than ever, no longer sharp or authoritative, only containing peace and boundless love. "Chloe," he whispered, his voice weak, broken, but every word was clear, resonating in my mind. "I have something to tell you." I leaned down, pressing my ear to his lips, trying to catch his every word, his every final breath. "I'm listening, Xander. I'm always here. I have done many terrible things in this life," he said, a faint, serene smile gracing his lips, a smile I had never seen on him. "I stained my hands with blood, became a devil. To protect those I love, to protect you. To protect those innocent souls." He coughed lightly, a heavy, dry cough, then continued, his eyes fixed on me, unwilling to leave. "You are my atonement, Chloe. You are the reason I believe that no matter how dark, this life still holds light, still holds hope. You are my everything." Tears streamed down my cheeks, salty and hot. I knew what he was saying. I knew he was preparing for a final separation, an inevitable end. I didn't want to accept it, didn't want to believe he would leave me, leave this world. "No, Xander," I whispered, my voice choked. "You'll be fine. You'll be okay. We will get through this together." He shook his head gently, a weak gesture but full of acceptance. "I lived a life of violence, Chloe, and it is time to pay the price. But I have no regrets. I don't regret doing everything to protect you, to protect the children. I just wish could have been with you longer, seen you smile, lived a peaceful life with you." He raised his hand, touching my face, his fingers trembling, growing colder. "You are my conscience, Chloe. You are my inspiration. Live. Live well. And remember, I will always watch over you. Always be by your side, in your heart." And then his breath grew weaker, fainter. His eyes, still looking at me affectionately, slowly closed. His hand loosened from mine, falling onto the pristine white blanket. Xander Sterling, my predator, my protector, my darkness, was gone. He had found ultimate tranquility. An extreme pain tore through my heart, like a sharp blade piercing my core. I hugged him tight, burying my face in his chest, sobbing uncontrollably until there were no more tears, crying for the lost love, crying for a future without him. The distant church bell tolled, sounding so mournful, like a melody accompanying his soul to its final resting place, to the light. The sun had completely set, leaving behind a pitch-black night, empty and cold. Time passed. The pain gradually subsided, but never completely disappeared. It became a part of me, a scar on my soul, reminding me of the fierce love and noble sacrifice. I remained in Xander Sterling's mansion, the place where he protected me, the place where our love blossomed. Mrs. Higgins stayed by my side, like a mother, a friend, a silent companion. I continued my work, but now I worked with a different purpose: to continue Xander Sterling's legacy, to protect the vulnerable, those who couldn't protect themselves, so no one would have to suffer the fate he or those he tried to protect did. A year after Xander Sterling passed, I gave birth to a baby. A healthy baby boy, with deep, strong eyes, yet containing a peace, a light just like his father's, but carrying a warmth, a light that I believe Xander Sterling had longed for in his life. I named him Xander Jr. He was the seed of the future, the symbol of a sacrifice that was not in vain, the testament to our love. He died so I could live, so his son could be born, in a safer world, a world free from the darkness of the trafficking network, a world he fought to create. I often take my son out to the vast garden, watching the sunrise. The brilliant golden light shines down on the mansion, taking away its somber look, replacing it with vitality and hope. I hold my son, telling him about his father, about a strong, mysterious man who sacrificed himself to protect those he loved, about a silent hero. I know, Xander Sterling found his atonement. His death was not a meaningless tragedy. It was the payment, the redemption, and the way for him to secure happiness for me and our son. He passed on happiness to the next generation, for a future he couldn't live to witness, but I will live for him, for our love. Every time I look into my son's eyes, I see Xander Sterling's image. A darkness that found light, a devil who found redemption, and a love that overcame every boundary of darkness to bloom, though only for a brief moment, yet eternal in my heart. I smile, a gentle, calm smile. The tragedy of death has been contrasted by the peace of light and the innocent smile of a child. It is a tragic yet serene ending, a twisted fairy tale where sacrifice is made to pass on happiness, so that love can last forever.